Welcome back to another episode of the Man vs. Mob podcast. And this one is about the slow media diet. Let me explain what exactly that means. So, have you heard of the slow food movement that has started over the last couple of years in particular? It's a response to the fast food movement, which has really been happening for many decades now. Where if you think about how our diet shifted towards fast food, not particularly good for you most of the time, heavily processed, a lot of sugar and other uh, heavy in other ingredients that our body shouldn't be eating so much of. Corn syrup, artificial ingredients, right? So there was a slow realization that started to dawn on us that filling our bodies full of this stuff has consequences to our health, to our society, to the healthcare system, to any number of different things. Rates of heart disease, rates of obesity, diabetes, all kinds of different afflictions. And not only that, but just the way that we feel, we're more lethargic, more depressed. It affects our mental health. And there's been the major push in recent years for more organic food, better farming practices, fewer pesticides, really paying attention to what we put into our bodies, to what we put into our digestive tracts, less alcohol, um, more responsible drug use, more responsible um, consumption of food from farmers markets and Whole Foods, if you can afford it, and really just trying to get better options available, more natural ingredients, organic ingredients, all that stuff. So that has been recently dubbed the slow food movement, where you have people who are, and I think it's really been helped by the pandemic, of course, is people stuck at home. A lot of people are just getting Uber Eats and uh, the various other food services, the delivery from restaurants, which is good because we're supporting local restaurants. But a lot of people in their food choices have shifted towards healthier options at those restaurants. And then a lot of other people have focused on preparing their own meals again. So you think about the meal prep services that exist. You think about how people are looking at ingredients more and thinking about sustainability, not just for their own health, but for environmental health, for societal health. Um, this has been dubbed the slow food movement because we're shifting away from, in many ways, fast food and realizing that the way that we were treating our bodies for so many decades, although the positive side of it was it allowed us to feed more people more cheaply, is that it was not good for us. And that was the trade-off of it. So that realization has allowed us to shift more towards slower appreciation of food, slower food prep, rather than just getting a bagged lunch at McDonald's or Wendy's or any other restaurant. Even alternatives like um, uh, Boloco and Cadoba. Of course, you can get really crappy mega meals there as well. You can get 3 burritos. But in general, the ingredients, there's not as many fried ingredients, or even the fried ingredients, they might have better oils used. So all of this stuff, it's the slow food movement. It's more appreciation and consideration of what you're eating and drinking. Um, so paralleling that, we're kind of coming into this realization is the slow media movement, where we're recognizing that the media and the information that we've consumed has made us, in many ways, dumber. It's made us more resentful of each other. It's made us less patient, more anxious, often more depressed. It has addicted us to a cycle of outrage and um, the fast media that has come into existence pretty much since the 90s, of 24-hour um, infotainment, really, and speculation, punditry, filling the news cycle, even when there's nothing to report, building on what somebody else has said rather than relying on a primary source. So, CNN reports on what Fox did, who's reporting on what MSNBC did, who today with the online publications are from BuzzFeed lists to any number of different sources that are basically reporting on each other's stories and each other's reactions. So it's like we live in an age of meta media where you have all these sound bites and quick takes and not much research being done, no support for investigative journalism because there's inherent risk to investigative journalism that it might not, if you're truly following the facts, you might not turn up with what you originally suspect you're going to um, come across, or there might not ultimately be a bombshell, in which case that is more of a dangerous investment for a newsroom than clickbait journalism and sensationalism. And so we've had this ratcheting up of the intensity of the media and the information that we consume, where there's bias built on bias built on bias built on bias, and the alarmism ratchets up, and our sense of anxiety and desperation ratchets up, and we're more kind of on a hair trigger towards each other because we just get pissed off at each other if we don't toe the party line, if we don't see the sense of emergency that that if other people don't see the sense of emergency that we're seeing, if some people are more laid back about things, or they don't engage in the same media consumption, then those people are seen as out of touch. And there's this social shaming that goes into it as well, with social media's involvement in it. So it's really just a shit show mess of fast media. It's a mix of the media that we consume on TV and radio and in print, but also the social media that accompanies it, and how anybody's take anywhere is seen as a threat in some way, right? So the media environment that exists today amplifies the fringes, amplifies the most uh, toxic or attention grabbing elements, even when they're not really that large relative to the people who don't have radical opinions. But on the left and the right and anywhere else, the people who have the most outrageous views, the people who are the most effective trolls, are the ones that get fed the most attention. And they're the ones that basically start to seem like a much bigger threat over the course of their media life cycle, because of the self-fulfilling prophecy of giving them more attention, inflating the sense of dread and the sense of uh, world-ending cataclysm. And I really don't think that we have much honest sense of perspective today. And so this is election day that I'm recording this. This is November 3rd, 2020. We don't know who the president's going to be for the next 4 years, but everybody has a sense of what this is right now. You have some people saying that this is late stage capitalism, implying kind of from a Marxist viewpoint that this is going to be the death knell of capitalism, and there's going to be a switch over to socialism or communism or something. You have another side saying that this is an end of empire situation, where we're like the end of the Roman Empire. Every empire has a life cycle and collapses. And then other people, more religious people, saying that this is the end times, or the second coming of Jesus, or Armageddon. Or I actually don't agree with any of those. I think that we don't have a sense of history anymore, or a sense of context with where we reside in the historical timeline. And I think that we're more in a phase of metamorphosis, like a caterpillar going into a cocoon to become a butterfly or something like that. And that might seem kind of tacky or cheesy to say that, but um, I don't see this as like we're focusing on the destruction or the end of something, and we have gone through that. Like, this is a death of sorts, right? But it's also a transition into something altogether new. And I've discussed before how I believe that is this new technological paradigm of, I still think it's going to be uh, largely capitalist, but I think it's going to be a new type of capitalist. And we haven't even existed in complete capitalism, just like there was no, the attempt to implement full blown communism distorts the ideal. The same thing with the attempt to implement full blown capitalism distorts the full blown ideal. So we don't have complete free and open markets. We don't have no regulations. That's sort of what defines um, true capitalism, is laissez-faire free markets, as pretty much little to no regulation. We have all these regulations. We have not only that, but we have on top of that, so we have the regulatory structure, and then we have all the lobbyists, and we really exist in corporatism right now, which is some pseudo capitalistic slash mix of other things. And so I think we're actually shifting into an entirely new and really exciting, empowering system where the people who are creators, the people who really have ideas, are going to be able to collaborate and start to implement those ideas. And the old attitude of kind of like bullshitting your way to the top and grifting, like there's still going to be scam artists, don't get me wrong, but it's going to the old, you can say whatever you want and nobody can check you on it. You can always go into a new environment and screw over new people. That is going to be more and more difficult moving forward. And a new sort of social ethic is going to actually benefit the individual people that have that um, sort of a mix of self-reliance and also empathy and imagination that they can combine to work well with other people. So I think that's kind of the era that we're moving into. Um, and there's going to be tons of new networks, and I guess probably some institutions that are built around this new paradigm that we're shifting into. Um, so as I was talking about before, the slow media, the fast media environment that we've been living in for decades now has really uh, destroyed our minds, just like fast food destroyed our bodies. So there's a creeping realization that um, we need to focus on slower media, and that's going to be books. It's going to be longer form podcasts. It's going to be investigative journalism and gonzo journalism and less clickbaity stuff. And this is going to be a weaning process where we basically get ourselves off of the bad habits that we've been addicted to for our entire lives, some of us, and for the latter part of our lives for a lot of us who have been around for longer. But just as we transitioned into this shitty media environment that we currently exist in, we need to transition ourselves out of it. And we'll find that our sense of reality was extremely distorted. We're much better able to work together even when we have disagreements. We're able to talk things out. We're able to merge ideas and come up with better ideas, and we're able to compromise um, some of our feelings and also work many different values into the new systems, um, the new ideas, the new creations. um, so I'm really looking forward to this slow media revolution. And I think a lot of people can take part in it. And I think it can be aided by the shifting of incentives, and not only setting aside, allowing slow media creators and content creators the chance to make income in a more stable manner, and also maybe draw from numerous sources in the sort of gig economy fashion that I've talked about before, but also to prioritize effective use of free time. Because moving forward, particularly as technology and artificial intelligence and all of these things take over a greater percentage of the mundane, repetitive jobs on the market, a lot of people are going to have more free time. And the effective use of that free time is going to be paramount. There's almost going to be a time, I don't want to call it time welfare, but if you think about how um, welfare in the mid 20th century, the war on poverty was designed to effectively just like give people money. What that didn't take into account is that not everybody is going to spend money smartly. So some people are going to use it for opportunities and necessities. Other people are going to squander it. The same thing is going to happen with time, where time is going to be a new currency, and there are going to be tons of people who use time extremely intelligently and who are going to invest it in different ways and get a sense of fulfillment and enrichment and self-actualization and help other people and repair communities and repair the social fabric. And other people are going to just waste their time. They're going to scroll and scroll and scroll and be resentful of other people and not really put their time into improving themselves, improving their communities, their families, anything like that. So we need to help each other with that for sure. But I am thinking about how it might be, well, two things. So I think there's this cyclicality to the destruction of what we call social fabric and then the repair of it, almost like the tearing of muscle fiber when you work out at the gym, and then it repairs and it gets stronger and bigger over time. I think that that's really what happens and is somewhat unavoidable. Maybe we can attenuate it. We can limit the magnitude of how torn it becomes in this cyclical nature of the tearing of our society and the social fabric and these crises that we have. But I think it is necessary that we have these crises, from time to time, so that we can sort of uh, reset ourselves on the course, and not only that, but um, get this sense of catharsis and coming together again and moving towards building something and creating something new and setting the course for the next phase of human evolution and societal evolution and personal evolution. And I think another thing that we lose track of, and this relates to both the slow media revolution and the cyclicality of maybe what we're seeing in the metamorphosis, rather than this being the end of something, is it's almost like seeing winter as the death of something. And if our lives were only a year long, or something close to that, then we would see winter. If winter was in the end part of our lives, we would see that as like, okay, that's it, everything is coming to an end. But this is sort of a seasonal winter, a multi-year winter that we're going through right now, but there's spring on the other side of it. And Ray Dalio, who is I couldn't exactly tell you everything he does. I think he deals in hedge funds and finances, but he has a book that he recently wrote, and he talks about cycles a lot, and financial cycles, and then business cycles and other cycles like war cycles, political cycles, and how it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. You have all these cycles and they're varying lengths, like the business and economic cycles are shorter, so they might be a couple years or 7 years or something like that. And then you have longer, um, maybe political cycles or social cycles that might be 80 years or 100 years or something like that. So these cycles are happening, they've been happening sort of independently of each other for a while. And as the world starts to get tied together, as China and the US and Europe and Africa and South America, they all start to integrate more and more, and immigration starts to happen more, and the ideas spread, and technology connects and binds these different areas and different cultures. I think what we're seeing is all these different cycles are starting to converge and what's the term, superimpose over each other and become kind of like a super cycle. And we have this cyclicality. It's like we have these waves of cycles, and then if you zoom into the waveform, you see smaller cycles, like smaller frequencies within the cycles. So what we are perceiving as sort of like what we see is super zoomed in, a smaller cycle, when in reality we're missing the much larger cycle that's occurring. I wish that this is where I need to take my friend Dave's advice and have a graphic next to me that really shows what I'm talking about. But we're we're more localized in our assessment of, we're looking at like the surface features and we're missing the much bigger picture of what's going on. And so we need to take a longer, larger viewpoint, and we need to also recognize that there's some degree of inevitability to these cycles of chaos and rebuilding, and or chaos and order, but we can limit how disruptive and destructive they are. Like there might always be a swing back and forth, but we can limit the degree of the swing, to use a pendulum analogy. And I think that we, in our preparations for these various cycles, it kind of becomes self-fulfilling prophecy in that we're actually causing them more and more, the more in line that all of us get. So it's, if you've ever heard the term second order chaotic, it's basically like the weather is first order chaotic, because we can start to, the more and more variables we pull together, the better idea of how weather works we ultimately get, and our awareness of how the weather systems work doesn't affect how they work. So that's first order chaotic. But second order chaotic is like the more aware of, say, something like the economy, which is also extremely complex. The more aware of that we are, and the more variables that we build into our models, and the more we try to predict it, it actually starts to shift away, or it starts to respond to our awareness of how it works, because um, that's going to change how it works. Our awareness of how it works is going to shift our predictions and what we do, and it's always kind of going to be like moving away from us to an extent. But I think that something like that is happening with these cycles, these larger cycles, because the more we try to prepare for them, like, here comes bad times in the coming years, or here comes good times, whatever, the more the economy and the political situation is going to try to prepare itself for that and align itself to it. And so, like, if everybody's trying to prepare for an upcoming economic, or a predicted upcoming economic downturn, by like pulling their money out of the markets or something like that, then that action itself is going to cause it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's going to cause the markets to respond in a way that could precipitate the economic collapse that they were predicting. Right. So anyway, this is getting complicated, but the gist of it is, prepare for the slow media movement, and prepare your brain, transition your brain into better content, into thoughtful content, into content that has much more variety. Because in the past, we had to specialize in highly specific ways of thinking, or in highly specific um, economic positions. Like we weren't a jack of all trades. We were generally like, this is our one thing that we do, and we specialize in it. We need more broad thinking moving forward, so that different people can more effectively cross-pollinate with each other and share ideas and build better versions of what we have existed, and build altogether new things as well. So I'm really excited about this. I'm hoping that you get excited about it too. And whatever happens today and in the coming weeks with this election, keep this in mind. The night is darkest before the dawn. So, like I said in the previous episode, I'm going to try to end all of my episodes, or at some point in each episode, have a product that I have used and that I genuinely recommend. And I wouldn't call it a sponsor yet because they don't know that I'm doing this, but maybe hopefully I will start to get sponsors over time. But this is actually, I don't have it with me, but it's called Strive Biltong, and it is like beef jerky or Slim Jims, but it's a better version of it in that it's not filled with chemicals, artificial ingredients, sweeteners, sugars, anything like that. It's literally just um, good quality beef, not raised with hormones or anything like that. And it's in a lamb casing. If you get the what would be kind of, I don't want to call it a sausage, but it's sort of the Slim Jim, the stick version of the meat. But it also comes in pouches, jerky, and it's really tasty. I started getting it when I was going to the different gas stations around the country as I was fueling up, as I was traveling around, checking out the different regions, and the stuff is damn good. It feels good to eat it too because it's better for you. And one of the things that you avoid is, if you're like me and you like beef jerky and Slim Jim type stuff, then you don't have that taste of the preservatives and also that really bad breath that results from having I mean, I'm not saying your breath is going to be great after eating this, but a lot of the bad breath comes from like the sugar and the corn syrup and the teriyaki flavor that goes into the beef. So try next time you go to I guess it's like CVS, Walgreens, sometimes they have it at 7-Eleven. Next time you go, look for Strive beef biltong. There's a bunch of different flavors. There's hatch chili, there's peri peri, there's another hickory flavor, original flavor, and they're all really good. I've tried them all, and it's a little expensive, but beef jerky has always been pretty expensive, but you won't regret it. You actually taste the meat, you taste the quality. It's worth every penny, in my opinion. So that's it for today. I will see you soon. And whatever happens today with the election, like I said, stay positive. This isn't going to last.